Now I'm going to introduce the four people who are on the panel. We've got Shakira Martin, who is the Vice Principal in...
Principal.
Vice President.
Not yet, almost.
Vice President? Even. No, presidents are better, aren't they? When you go abroad, we get called presidents all over the place in America and Korea and various places. So she's the Vice President for FE at the NUS. And have you just got re-elected? Am I right in thinking
No,
that?
I am standing for re-election.
You're standing for re-election.
Yeah.
So vote for Shakira. We've got Sue Murphy, who already introduced herself earlier. She's the Deputy Leader of Manchester City Council. We have got Karina Hembury from Access Training, an independent training provider. And we've got Sheila Leagrave, who is CEO of Chichester College down on the south coast. So, gonna start by asking a question which I think has come up as a theme at several points during the morning. But to what extent can we as leaders and managers and executive innovate within the external constraints in which we operate?
Innovation is absolutely key to the role of a leader and to taking our organisations forward. At the moment, it does feel as if there are lots of constraints around what we can and can't do, and I've said earlier, structural constraints, red tape, etc. But there are people who are doing it, and one of the things I'm already learning from people in the room today is there are good models out there of innovation, how we can do it, and part of that is sometimes knowing when you can break the rules and trying to do it in a controlled way, not breaking them too much, but you have to question them.
Okay, Sheila, your area review's kicked off as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, we are close to the end, actually.
Okay.
We've got the penultimate steering group on the 23rd, and then we wrap up at the end. I see area reviews as an opportunity to innovate, as an opportunity to collaborate with colleges who might otherwise not have seen that opportunity there. And I think some of that will come out of the Sussex Area Review. It's a frustrating process, and I think it still gives colleges who don't want to do anything the opportunity to do nothing, because in the end, there's no stick to achieve that. But I think there are opportunities. We've had lots of discussions in Sussex about apprenticeships, apprenticeships, and also how we work together to increase higher education, level 4, level 5 technical programmes.
So for me, one of the critical things for us around innovation and the external constraints that there are as a private provider is not so much on the area reviews, it's everything else that's going on. A lot of the apprenticeship stuff is obviously really big for us. But in terms of looking at it from a leadership point of view, for me, it's all about the people. And that's the only way that you're going to get innovation. It's by developing your people. It's by making sure that you have a team that you've invested in, that you trust, that you empower to be able to go on and make decisions themselves and allow them the freedom to come up with new ideas.
I think it's important as leaders that we lead from all angles. That's from the front, from behind, from the side, to get a full perspective of what we're trying to achieve. And I really do think that my message to all the leaders in the room is to talk up, because we have nothing to lose. We're damned if we don't, and we're damned if we do anyway, because the government has this agenda. But we do need people to start challenging some of the government's priorities and speaking up for our staff and our students, because as much as whatever's going to happen is going to happen, we cannot underestimate our voice and the fact of what the input that we put in. We are the people that are working on the ground. Well, not necessarily, it depends where you put yourself really, but we're the people that are working with these students. We are the ones that are seeing day by day what these students need and what can become of them if it is done right. So it's really important that we move our position as leaders to have a full 360-degree angle of what we're trying to achieve, and I think that will give us a better vision of what we're trying to do. Go and speak to your students or to your class reps or your course reps. They know what they want to get out of their education. They are there for a reason, and they are the consumers, customers, whichever way. They are the students, ultimately, the learners, and it needs to be beneficial to them.
How do we avoid not taking the human worries and concerns out of the process? It will start with that? Sheila?
Well, you can never remove the human worries and concerns in any process. I think it's all about communication to me. And I've listened to colleges saying, I first heard that by rumour. We've worked really hard to communicate throughout the process, even if nothing particularly is happening. So because I think silence sometimes can create fear. And we have a student committee of our governing bodies, so we've talked to our students and our student exec, but we've also talked to our staff to just keep them informed all the way along.
We do. I mean, in the private sector, we tend to think, there's a particular thing about college staff, FE lecturers, and a culture around it, which, I think there's very few colleges that have broken through that. But it does feel that the culture of the workforce within the independent sector is a bit different. Do you see differences there? Do you know enough about the college sector to be able to draw those distinctions?
Yes, I think there are some differences. I think a lot of the differences for me are around some of the things that you've both already said. So communication is obviously really critical in this, but culture, I think there is probably a given expectation of a different culture type within the independent private sector than there is within the college sector. I think there is therefore an expectation level amongst staff that innovation, change, responsiveness are critical because they have to be. We have to be fleet of foot in the independent sector to be able to survive. So I think there's perhaps a different base or starting level for staff there. But I agree, Sheila, with your point. You're never going to lose human worries from any of these situations, from any of these changes. So for me, as well as the communication, it's about acknowledging that. It's about allowing staff to have the space to be able to put those worries across, for those to be acknowledged, and then for there to be a response, for people to not feel that things have gone out and then disappeared into the ether, never to be looked at again. For that communication to continue so that people know what's happening all the time. And yes, if we've raised these queries, if we've got these issues, we know that they've been heard, we know they've been listened to, and more than that, we know that they're being actioned. And we know that because people keep talking to us and people keep telling us and people keep asking us. And I think you can never do enough of that.
Shakira, any thoughts on how we keep teachers on our side?
Yeah. It's really funny because I just remember growing up, my mum always saying honesty is the best policy, but it's obviously till you get to a certain level, because integrity, I think integrity is the paramount thing here. We have to realise that people are going to be worried about their jobs. Our frontline teachers are not rich. They do this for the love. It's evident. I see it at my own college. My teacher was living 13 miles from where she lived. Her car broke down and she had to get the train because she couldn't afford to fix her car. So we can't expect people not to be nervous about this. But if you're not integral, if you do not bring people on the journey with you, then these things will manifest. People will start, having assumptions about it. So integrity and loyalty is the most paramount thing. And it's okay, one of the speakers said before, it's okay to say you don't know, instead of filling that conversation with waffle and just to keep that person sweet. Because again, once the truth does come out or it doesn't say what it is meant to say, you're going to have people defensive. So again, integrity is the best policy. If you can go to bed and sleep at night and be like, yeah, I was honest, then you're doing the right thing. You go to bed and you're thinking, then you're not doing the right thing.
But how are we going to develop the workforce to ensure the quality of both content and delivery, this in the context of digital learning, is continued? So as we look forward, how do we not just keep the workforce on the side, but continue to develop them for the future as well? Go on, Karina.
I'll profess an interest to this. At the minute, I am in the middle of rolling out an e-portfolio system to my company, so I'm living and breathing this at the moment. And I think we're coming back to a lot of the same points here, isn't it? do we discover that leadership is actually just about communication and that's it, that we can all go home? For us, in terms of keeping people up to date, making sure that people can continue to focus on the day job, on continuing to support learners as they need to be supported, whilst also dealing with changes, digital changes, etc., that are coming in. It's making sure that they've got the support that they need, that they know that there is a proper structure in place to support them throughout it. For us, in terms of implementing a new system, we did a lot of talking to people beforehand so people knew what was coming. We did a lot of training with people initially, but then it's keeping it going for us. So we've had a lot of ongoing standardisation sessions and a lot of things where until you start working with new systems, you don't know how they're going to impact on the learners, you don't know how they're going to impact on the staff. You make your best guesses, but it never quite works out as such. So it's keep going with it and don't think I've brought something new in and that's it, it's in now, I can walk away. I think you have to keep working at it all the time and keep making sure that everybody is feeling as supported as they can be, and recognising that it's going to be really difficult for a lot of people to adapt to work in a very different way, and in a way that might be completely second nature for their learners, but is not for them.
Absolutely.
And how do you get over that barrier of how am I going to support my learner to do this when I'm not feeling comfortable with it myself?
Yeah.
What's so great about FE is that we can learn from each other, and that's just that is what's just so just enjoyable about it, that you go in there to learn from your teacher, but your teacher can also learn from you. But on that note, I think for me it's about collaboration. And we all say collaboration, like, oh, we need to collaborate. But what we need to recognise in the collaboration is that it might mean that one organisation or one set of group might need to give more than another because of your position. Maybe that's to finances, demographic, whatever. So you have to know that when you're collaborating, it might not be 50-50 in the first instance, but what comes out of it will be 50-50. Don't become complacent. Like, always continue to develop your staff, develop your organisation. We talk about CPD a lot, and it just sounds like a buzzword. We actually need to be putting this into practice. We also forget as leaders, like when we started off in the beginning, we used to talk about SMART objectives and SWOT analysis. Go back to basic. What are the strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats in you doing this? It's not rocket science. It's what we started off learning when we was that emerging leader at the beginning. And I feel like sometimes the change and the stuff that's going along outside of our job can like mix our minds up, and then we get all confused like what we need to do, and it's like just basic kind of integrity and going back to basic. And also stop creating things that are already created. Go and find the ones that work well and work with those organisations. Yes, we're going to be in competition, but don't be too greedy. Gluttony is a sin. Like, there is enough if we share it equally for everybody to be able to eat out of it. But complacency, don't become complacent. Collaborate, but know that you might need to give more in the first instance. It's a bit like a relationship, really.
For me, the way it works best for us is finding champions. So we found champions who really loved digital, who knew how to use digital, and could then share that with other people. And that's the best, the way we found created the best results. And I think the other point, and we've talked a lot about distributed leadership and how you ensure that people feel empowered to do what's best for them. So we've now got, I'm sure like every other college, some targets to try and change some of our delivery particularly for our level 3 curriculum into some sort of blended learning. But the answer to that is, or in our case the answer to that is, say to the curriculum leaders, you decide how you want to do that. You take that responsibility. You might find that in some programs it's very easy to do, and in some programs it isn't. And then the third point I'd make is share your innovations. We have a secret society. We call it Sally's Secret Society because Sally is my assistant principal for quality, and she had innovation in the society, and the way she did it is she bribed them with breakfast, and they came and had a bacon sandwich. You know, a few teachers, do you want to share innovation, innovative ways of teaching, different ways of using IT? A few people came along, next time bring a friend, and it has ballooned. So I think encouraging that innovation, one of the things I'm really proud of is that we ask our staff each year in a survey, do you feel you can innovate without fear of failure? And over 90% of them say yes. And I think you've constantly got to give that message. It comes back to culture.
Yeah. Given that the lesson of successful mergers are two vital ingredients, namely a curriculum vision which delivers for students and a culture which unites and motivates. We need time to develop and embed these. Is the timescale for area reviews in danger? There's about 3 questions in that, but which would you like to have a go at?
I think the short answer is no, it doesn't support that at all. Because it does feel, it's a rules-driven process, it feels quite rushed and so doesn't allow time really to innovate. And the discussion we had on my table was about the concept of, feels a bit like a forced marriage, some of the outcomes. So I think there has to be a recognition within area review that we do need that time. We can have a vision about what we want to do, and I think in our area review there are clusters of colleges emerging already. We're quite far along with that, but built into the end point and the implementation plan that everybody talks about has to be the space to actually work through those issues about curriculum shaping and about the culture. My college is the product of a big merger in 2008, and I know how long it took us actually. There were 3 years work went on in advance of that, and it still took us another 3 years, I think, to actually get everything into some kind of shape where it looked okay. And we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that because while we're too busy on concentrating on merging institutions, we're not serving the learners.
Okay, Shakira?
Yeah, just going on about the curriculum, I think it's really important that when we're talking about to know the importance of liberation. So when we talk about liberation, we talk about the most marginalised groups in society, disabled, black, women, LGBT, and recognising that when the curriculum are taught through different perspectives, that what comes out of it is different. And when we talk about these high-skilled jobs, really and truly, as a black woman, I don't really know, there isn't really anybody that looks like me often in these high-skilled jobs. So not only do we need to place people in those jobs to identify with people at the bottom, but we also, not at the bottom, you know what I mean, like the first, I don't know what the technical word is, but not the bottom. But also we need to diversify our organisation from senior management all the way down to reflect our membership. And that way, we're halfway there by giving the students the aspirations to know where they're going to be. So for me, for example, I want to be an aspiring principal. There were 17, there's 11 of us now. Hopefully by the time I get there, there's going to be like 100 more. But it's only because of the people that I have around me, great support networks and aspiring principals, some of them that are in the room that I can look up to know that there is a space for me. Without that, I'll just be like, I want to be a principal, but I'm never going to get there. So it's about from the curriculum to our organisation, it all plays a domino effect.
I mean, that's a fantastic place to end, isn't it?